My name is Beth Martinez, and I'm going to spend just a few minutes setting some background for you and introducing tonight's program. Chief Ryder of the Fort Bend ISD Police Department is with us this evening as well, and he'll lead you through the safety and security plan here shortly. There's a message up here for you on the PowerPoint. If you do not have a QR reader on your smartphone or smart device, could you download one? And if you're not able to do that, have no worries, because we'll have some paper instruments for you to use as well. But if you do have a QR code reader or want to take the opportunity to download that, you should be able to find an app for free. We thank you for coming this evening. This worked fine a minute ago, you know. I'm sorry, give me just 1 second.
Right arrow is
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you for being here tonight as we talk to you about our safety and security plan for Fort Bend ISD. For those of you who have not been a part of our steering committee or joined us for some past community dialogue meetings for our facilities master plan, we want to bring you forward, give you a little bit of history to bring you forward. We have finished several months of planning the district strategic plan for facilities management, which started with a facilities needs assessment, involved the community all the way along the process, and certainly engaged with quite a number of folks here at Willowridge when we came for one of the community dialogue meetings. It was very successful to get the community's input. The facilities needs assessment is where we begin with the safety and security plan in determining those needs on each campus and each building here in Fort Bend. So we definitely have the data to move forward. We'll be following and adhering to the core beliefs and commitments that the school board has established for us. It's very important that we have that framework and that we make sure that all of our work, especially our safety and security work, ties back to our basic beliefs, our core beliefs and our core commitments here in the district. And that we align to our mission in Fort Bend ISD, which is that we exist to inspire and equip all students to pursue futures beyond what they can imagine. And so we want to make sure that everything we do provides that safe environment for them so that they can pursue those futures, and that we're here to help them and maintain safety and security. I mentioned the strategic planning process and the facilities master planning process. The valuable piece of that, one of the most valuable pieces of that, was the community engagement. Coming out to the community, sharing information, getting input, taking it back to other stakeholder groups, refining the material or the information throughout the process, going back to the community, and then coming again back to our steering committee so that we could then ultimately make a recommendation to the board to adopt the facilities master plan. That's the exact framework that we're following this time. We're using the needs identified in the facilities needs assessment. We brought that information forward to a steering committee made of the same group of folks who joined us through our facilities master planning process, and many of you are here, so if you could raise your hand if you've been a part of our steering committee. I mean, raise it high, because we're talking long hours. They've put a lot of work into the facilities master plan, and then they've come back to help with the safety and security plan, so thank you very much for volunteering and for being here this evening. We visited with our principals. We've shared this information with the budget committee. We'll be working with our academic advisory council, taking the information to the community tonight, tomorrow night, and Thursday night. Tomorrow night we'll be at Clements High School, and Thursday evening we'll be at Bowie Middle School. So we hope to get good representation from across the district. Following Thursday night's meeting, we're going to post the video of the meetings online with a link to this questionnaire that you'll fill out this evening so that we can get input from folks who weren't able to join us at one of these 3 events. And then ultimately take the information back to our steering committee, finalize the planning, the the safety and security master plan, and then recommend that to the school board in June in hopes that they will adopt that as a starting point for moving forward. And that's why we're here this evening, so that the work of the safety committee, made up of several folks on the E-team and in leadership here in the district, so that this work and the work of the community can then move forward with everything that Chief Ryder is going to explain to you this evening. So I'm going to turn it over. You're in good, safe hands with Chief Ryder.
Check 1, 2.
Okay. Everybody hear me okay now? Very good. And I hate doing this Garth Brooks things, but I also hate holding the microphone. Thank you, Mr. Chandler, for allowing us to be here at Willowridge. We appreciate the use of the facility and allowing the community to come in and be a part of this. My name is David Ryder, for those who have not had the pleasure of meeting. I'm your police chief for the school district police. I've been here about 4.5 years, 24 years in law enforcement, and the last 18 has been in school district law enforcement. I spent 12.5 years at Austin ISD before coming here, and I left as the assistant chief there. And I'm extremely blessed to be here in Fort Bend ISD. I think we have a great group of officers. We have a great faculty, great staff, and great students. And the other great thing that we have going for us is we have a superintendent who supports safety and security. And so building on that, we want to move forward with a safety and security plan that works very well with our facilities master plan that the board has already heard, and also with the technology plan that they're going to hear very soon. So, to give you a little bit of background on where we're at, and where we came from. So in 2002, the Homeland Security Act of 2002 was written in response to the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and that Homeland Security Act basically identified school districts as governmental entities, and it said that we have to adhere to all the rules and regulations in the Homeland Security Act as they apply to terrorist events. We all know that schools are not immune from that. In addition, there's been lots of legislation, state legislation, and other federal legislation that has been imposed on school districts as far as emergency management and safety and security, and we adhere to those. But it's important for you to know that those continue to evolve and continue to come down. We like to think of emergency management here from a 40,000-foot view. I use that term a lot in our department. And so what I mean is not necessarily always from a campus level, but from a district level, from a global perspective. So we want to look at things, when we talk about emergency management on a school or an emergency event, or we tend to think about the school shootings. Those are the things that they're tragic, and they catch our attention, and they pull on our heartstrings, but the reality is they're very, very few and far between nationwide. We usually have about 10 or 12 a year across the nation. So those are very, very infrequent events, but they're very tragic when they do occur. And we certainly want to plan for those, and we certainly want to make sure that we're preparing for those. But the other thing we want to plan for, from an emergency management standpoint, are the things that happen on a daily basis. And so we want to make sure that we cover an all-hazards approach to our planning. And so when we devise these emergency operation plans, what you'll see tonight, these are basically options that we want to bring to the community. And you tell us what makes you feel safe. Which one of these options do you want us to focus on? 1, 2, 3, all 10 or 11? It doesn't matter. That's what we're here for. We're not prioritizing them. We haven't made up our mind that this one is going to go ahead of this one or this one's going to be implemented first or last or whatever the case may be, or at a certain school or not. That's not the case. What we're doing here is giving you options. We're telling you what we're looking at, what we think are best practices in the industry, what we've seen in our career from law enforcement, and now we want your input from the community. So let's get started with that. And best practices. We know that emergency management and all the emergency management plans are laid in a foundation of 4 interrelated elements. They're infrastructure, crisis communication, and notification. Those are 2 different things, but they're kind of combined within crisis communication and notification. Staffing, we know that we have to have the right people in place, and policies and procedures. So those are the 4 interrelated elements that we're going to talk about tonight. So as we start with the infrastructure, which is our first interrelated element, the way I want you to think about this is the goal here is to narrow the risk of threats happening at our schools. And the way we want to accomplish that is using concentric circles or layers of protection. So as you move from the outer perimeter of the school to the center of the school, there should be layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of protection, okay? And so that's the best way to protect our staff and our students from anything that might happen, an all hazards approach. So those concentric circles of protection is the way we're going to approach this infrastructure piece right now. So imagine you're a student on a school bus and you're going from your school bus stop to your school, and that's how we're going to approach it coming to the school, so you can kind of visualize these options. School bus cameras. Currently we have 467 buses in our fleet. 140 buses have video capability right now. The rest do not. We use the video frequently. The video is stored on hard drives on the bus. So what does that mean? When the bus driver gets to the terminal and maybe we need to recover some of that video, we have to physically go and pull the hard drive from the bus, take it into a computer terminal, and download that, and then put it back in the bus. So one of the things that we would like to do is go to a wireless video system for all of our buses with the video capability, so that when they pull into the terminal or a bus ramp or wherever they pull into with a wireless capability, and you're going to see that later on, with the wireless capability, those images download automatically, and then they're available, okay? All the buses that we purchase now have video capability on them, but as you can see, we've got quite a ways to go, so if we just went through attrition, it's going to take quite a while to outfit each bus with video capability. The other thing you're going to see in these is that quite a number of these options dovetail or fit together with each other, and that's the way we want it to work. If you think about security, safety and security as a jigsaw puzzle. And you can't have a jigsaw puzzle with just one piece. And we can't have a good safety and security plan with just one piece of the puzzle. We have to have multiple pieces of the puzzle that work and do different things, and they fit together the right way so that it makes a picture that we can all see and recognize. And that's really what our safety and security model should be like. The second infrastructure is the global positioning system on the buses. This is GPS. You've probably heard the term GPS. And basically what we want to do here is install GPS on our buses. We can do that a number of different ways. So that is not finalized, but there are different ways that we can add that. And what GPS will do is give us real-time data for the end user, for the system administrator at transportation. And they will be able to see how long a bus stopped at a certain point, how long they've been on their route, whether they're obeying the speed limit or not. And it will also give us real-time data as to where they've been. And so when we have a student maybe who got off at the wrong stop, or we don't know where they got off, at least we would be able to tell at that point where the bus went and exactly where their route was and what time they were at each stop. From a law enforcement perspective, that helps us immensely when we start looking for missing students. And that happens frequently in the elementary level. GPS is available in 2 modes. One is a live mode and one is a breadcrumb mode. So the live mode allows us to look at the look at the software real time and see exactly where all the buses are at any one point in time. The breadcrumb mode allows us to see snapshots, so every 2 or 3 minutes, and you wouldn't be able to see it in a live mode. So now as we move into the school, we would, if we want to explore the option of improving our security camera system. Right now we use analog technology for the most part in our cameras. We are starting to switch to IP cameras. IP or internet protocol, and they give you a much better camera resolution. We also use a decentralized system right now, which means that each campus has its own camera system, so to speak, and everything resides on the campus. Now, our dispatchers and some other folks in the district can log into those, and they can see those camera images. They can see recorded video, and they can see live video. But what we want to explore is the pros and cons of going from a decentralized system to a centralized system where all the camera footage and all the information is stored at a central location with a backup location. We want to improve our camera image quality, so that means moving to an IP camera, internet protocol camera, and away from analog. It's also going to mean that we're going to need to invest in more cameras at campuses. At one point when we started this process, we were thinking a number of cameras, like 150 to 200 cameras per high school campus. But the more we look at it, the goal is not to put a whole bunch of cameras into a campus. The goal is to improve our picture quality. So that becomes now our focus, is however many cameras it takes to improve that picture quality. It may be 130 cameras at a campus, provided we're using the right cameras. And so those are some of the things that we're looking at from a security camera standpoint. Security fencing. Security fencing gets a lot of attention. We have a number of campuses that don't have fencing around the playground areas, around portable buildings, things like that. And so we've identified 41 elementary campuses that need about 36,000 linear feet of fencing. We've identified 11 middle schools that need over 33,000 feet of linear fence, and 11 high schools that need over 65,000 feet of linear fence. I'm not a mathematician, but we were talking about this earlier, and it's well over 20 miles of fencing. So, there's pros and cons with that, and there's some unintended consequences. When we just put up fencing, somebody's going to have to go now and weed eat, either mechanically or chemically, 20 miles worth of fence that we didn't have before. There's going to be trash that gets collected on those fences. We're going to have to clean that. But the pros are, it keeps animals out. If we place them strategically, we put them in the right area, it'll keep balls from being kicked out into the street when the kids are playing. It'll keep unintended people from walking onto the playground. So there are definitely some pros there. This is an option. We just want to be able to capture your feedback on that. Video intercom. These allow staff to see and speak to visitors before they come into a building. We would like to install these at the elementaries. Usually elementaries have a single point of entry, and so we would only need one at the elementary campus, the way we're planning for that. And it would allow the office staff to be able to see who's outside before they come into the building. Excuse me. The middle schools and high school campuses have a little bit more student mobility, and so we would have to use a few more video intercoms in certain areas around those exterior doors to be able to give the office staff that advantage to be able to see who's coming in and out. But the goal is to install video intercom at each campus. Access control. Each one of our employees has an access control card. This is an electronic card that when pushed up against the card reader, the black box on the door, the light will turn from red to green if you have access, and then we'll automatically open the door for you. The pros about that is we have a number of employees, about 10,000 employees in the district, and we issue master keys to everybody, and we have a huge key inventory control issue. And so when employees quit, or for whatever reason they no longer work for us, or they lose a key, now we have keys floating around that are unaccounted for. So we want to go to a system where everybody has a card access, and that card access reads my information. When I use my card access, it reads my name and the date and the time and the location of where I use that card access. So that's beneficial when an employee no longer works for us. Our system administrator can go in and deny access, cut off the access to that card, and immediately that card doesn't work anymore. So we don't have to worry about the keys, and we don't have to worry about the inventory control. Now, the other thing that we can use access control cards for are interior rooms in the schools. Maybe you have a computer lab, okay? Maybe we have a vault in the front office. We can use it for that. We can use it for a number of places that we want to secure and not have to worry about issuing a key. Security vestibules are, a security vestibule is a secure location at the front of a campus where visitors come in and they go through our visitor management system before they're basically buzzed through or let through into the school to go wherever their appointment is or whoever they're going to go see. So a security vestibule is a place where we can better manage our visitors as they come into our schools. That's important to us. That's important to all of us. And so, excuse me, so our goal is to modify and improve the 29 campuses that already have some type of vestibule. And then the second part of that goal is to build 42 vestibules at the campuses that do not currently have them. When we talk about modifying a vestibule, you might walk into a school and see a countertop that doesn't have any glass or plexiglass or partition there. It's just a countertop. From a security standpoint, it might be easy to jump over that countertop. But we want to make that a little bit more difficult for somebody who might have those intentions. So we might go in there and modify that vestibule area by putting a plexiglass in there and some type of sliding window or something so there's still some personal interaction. We certainly don't want to cut the public off, but we do want to make sure that we have good visitor management at our campuses. So that's what a vestibule would do. Impact-resistant window film. This is something that we would like to put on the vestibules and also on the doorways that are at the end of each hallway and maybe some other strategic places as we identify them. But the impact-resistant window film is a very thin, flexible plastic, so to speak. It's a polyethylene, and it's attached to the windows or to the glass, and it is hurricane rated. So in other words, it's made to withstand 2x4s and tree limbs slamming into it in hurricane force winds. That's pretty strong. We hear a lot of talk about bulletproof glass and applying a window film that's bulletproof. The problem with that is, in the studies that we've seen, the bulletproof film is very, very thick and it's opaque, it's very difficult to see through, and so it kind of defeats the purpose of our front office staff being able to see through the vestibules. And so we believe that the hurricane-rated window film would do exactly what we want it to do. We want to deter, we want to deny, we want to delay people who are trying to do harm in the schools. And so this window film is not going to allow somebody to break the glass and just walk through it or climb through it. And it's going to be very, very, very difficult to get through there. It also will help us in inclement weather. The fact is, just like we talked about earlier, we're much more susceptible to inclement weather, hurricanes, floods, severe winds, than anything else, especially where we live here close to the coast. And so when we have severe weather, part of our emergency plan is to bring our kiddos into interior spaces in the school, and we have what we call a two-wall rule. We want to get them away from the windows and 2 walls in. Usually that's going to be in a hallway. By the time you go 2 walls in, it's going to be in a hallway. And so we want to be sure that we cover the doors in those hallways with this window film so that they have that extra layer of protection. Again, it's that added layer that what we can do to help keep them safe while they're in the hallways. The radio frequency ID technology, this is RFID technology. This technology has many, many uses. A couple we'll talk about here. The RFID technology that we've looked at would be embedded into the cards, into our employee access cards. And there are a couple of different types of cards we can use. For the teachers, well, let me tell you how it works first. So RFID technology works off a wireless network system, and you've heard that once already with the buses, but now the RFID would work off the wireless network system, and so we would have to have 100% wireless coverage in our buildings for this to be effective, which is one of the infrastructure things you're going to see. The RFID technology, the card reads to a reader, so if there would be a reader in this cafeteria, when I walk in here, as a system administrator looking at the computer, they would be able to see that my card is flashing green and everything is okay with my card and I'm where I'm supposed to be. As a teacher, there's an option for 3 buttons, 3 kind of hidden buttons in the card that if we program them a certain way, when they push them in an order, it sends an emergency signal to the system administrator. And so what it does, it puts that card in alarm, and so the card reader that reads it shows that that card is in alarm, and so the system administrator gets an instant email, or it pops up on the screen, or it could go to our police dispatcher, and it would show a red flash on there. And we would know whose card that is, and basically where they're located in the building. It's not an exact pinpoint. It doesn't tell you you're sitting exactly here, or you're in room 104. It gives you an area. Okay, but it gives us an area to go look pretty quick. So it's a silent alarm. Is kind of how you might look at it. And then the students who don't have those buttons, because we certainly don't want a bunch of buttons being pushed during the day, but the students who don't have those, their card can read to the readers. And if a student from another campus comes onto this campus, their card is not set to read here, so it's going to flash red. So now we know there's a card that doesn't belong here, okay? The other application here for the students, let's say we have to evacuate the building. We have a fire drill, and our system administrator on the campus goes and looks at the computer screen while everybody is supposed to be out of the building, and we see 3 cards flashing. Are they in the bathroom and they didn't hear it? Are they in the library and they just didn't want to go? Or did somebody just leave a card in a backpack and it's in a locker? You know, those are a bunch of different scenarios, and they're all very possible. So but what it does is it gives us the ability instantly to see if there are cards left in the building, and now we can go to those areas and check for people before we evacuate the building completely. So that's a benefit. Another benefit of the RFID system is the asset tag technology. We can put on our computers, projectors, anything we decide we want to put an asset tag on, we can tie that asset tag to a certain reader so that if a projector or a computer leaves an area, then it automatically sends a signal to the system administrator. And so that's an instant notification that a piece of equipment that our taxpayers have paid for is now missing. And so from a police standpoint, it helps us go back and investigate that very, very quickly, because we know exactly when it left, and we can tie that into the camera system, and we can see who was in that area at the time. The way it works now, you know, our cameras record, but if we leave for the summer and the school is unoccupied or a classroom is unoccupied for, 2 months, and the teacher comes back and notices the computer's missing, we've got to try to go find 2 months worth of recorded video, and we just don't have it. It's very, very difficult at that point. The other thing our students can use the RFID technology for, the asset tags, RFID technology for, they can come with the barcodes on the back. And so in order to speed up the lunch line, there's an application where we could use the card, the students can use the card in the lunch line, so when they get to the end of the line, the cafeteria worker inputs what they have on their tray, the student scans the card, and it automatically deducts from their account, and they move on. So it makes it a lot quicker. We can use it for transportation, where the students can get on a bus and scan the card, and if the light turns green, then the bus driver knows that student is supposed to be on that bus. They're assigned to that route. It keeps unauthorized people from getting on our bus, And when the student gets off the bus, they'll scan their card. It'll give us a location of where they got off the bus. Now you couple that with the GPS system that we would have on our bus and the video cameras, okay, how everything is dovetailed together. Then when we have those 15 missing kindergartens that first week of school, which we have every day, until they get used to their route, it gives us a very accurate time and place where that student got off, and how we can send our resources to that neighborhood and start looking for them immediately. The way it works now is we have to call that bus driver, and they're usually at home by the time we realize the student's missing. And we have to ask the bus driver, do you remember a kid that got on the bus? Do you remember if he was wearing this? Do you remember where he might have gotten off? And so it's trying to find a needle in a haystack. So, okay, wireless network coverage. We've talked about that a couple of times. We do not have 100% wireless network coverage in all of our schools, but we want that. Again, this dovetails right into other pieces of our security plan. So we want to make sure that our schools have 100% wireless network coverage. And we're going to go into another application here. So the crisis communication and notification is our second interrelated element. It's very important that we have good communication with our staff. During a crisis, the ability to communicate during a crisis it allows for an effective response from everybody's point of view, not just the police, but from our facilities, from transportation, from our leadership, and from the parents. So we want to make sure that we have some redundancy built into that. So one of the things that we've looked at are communication devices, and this is another place where that 100% wireless network coverage comes in. We have explored the option from 2 different vendors that have communication devices that teachers would wear on a lanyard. Okay, most teachers wear a lanyard every day anyway. It might have a key on it, it might have their ID on it. And so we're looking at a device that's simple to use, and it's easy to carry, and it's lightweight. One of the devices is an audio enhancement device and an emergency device all in one. So when I say audio enhancement, what that means is a teacher can stand at the front of the room and talk just like I'm talking, and it's a microphone that's right about here. It hangs on the lanyard, and the people in the back of the room can hear me just as clear as the people in the front of the room. So a teacher doesn't have to yell over the kids to be able to talk to the ones in the back, and they're always yelling at the kids on the front row. But the other thing that this device does is when there's an emergency, whether in the classroom or right outside the classroom, the teacher can push the emergency button on the device, and instantly that will send a signal to the system administrator, whether it's the principal, to our dispatcher, or whoever, and the teacher can talk into that device, and we can hear what's going on. The teacher can give us real-time information. So whether there's an irate parent or an intruder or a medical emergency, whatever the case may be, the teacher can call for help and call for what they need right then and there without having to send the student to go do that. There are other communication devices that are very similar to that. Some are about the size of, remember the old pagers that we used to have years ago? About an inch by 2 inches. They look like that, and they're actually a mobile 2-way radio. So instead of carrying around a handheld radio, the teacher would have that on their lanyard all day long. And so if they go out to the playground and they see somebody jumping that fence we were talking about putting around the playground, you know something's wrong. Well, now they can go ahead and hit that emergency button on their radio, and they can talk to us directly. They have that capability as we're responding, or they can talk to their administrator inside the school and other teachers and tell them lock the school down. Somebody's coming in the back. Okay. That would work on the bus ramp, it would work on the car rider lines, work on the playground, anywhere around the school. So pretty neat technology out there. Notification systems. The first one we talked about was communication, where we can talk back and forth. This is a notification system where we, as a police department or as an administration, would send information to the campuses. Maybe we have severe weather coming in. Maybe we have a tornado spot. And this has happened several times just in the 4.5 years that I've been here. We have a tornado spotted in the area, it's moving a certain direction, and we have to make phone calls. Our dispatcher has to make 10 or 12, 15 phone calls to the schools that are in that cone where that tornado is headed. Well, by the time you make all those phone calls, it's passed. So this notification system would allow us to type one message and hit send to a group of schools, and then via a message board, an LED display, whether it's strobe lights with a message board or whatever the case may be, however we decide to implement this, there's so many different products on the market, but that school and that office staff would get an alert immediately, and they would all get it at the same time. And then part of this alert notification process is that they have to respond to that to let us know that they got the emergency message. So if we know there's a tornado coming, we can tell them to shelter in place. We can tell them the tornado's coming. It should be passive in 5 minutes. Shelter in place now. Hit send, they get it, and they have to hit respond so that we know that they got it. So that is how we kind of dovetail in with the other one. Two-way radio replacement. Police radios, transportation radios are going to need to be replaced by 2017. The reason I tell you this is just a little history. We had the FCC started a narrow banding project. And basically what that means is they take the frequencies that we use for first responders and they're squeezing them all down into a narrow band so that they can get more radio frequencies in and around them. They're trying to get more radios on the network. But what that means for our radios is that we have to switch from an analog technology radio to a digital, or what's called an apex radio. And so we've been doing that over the last couple of years because the FCC mandated that all this had to be done by 2013. Well, like many things, it was an unfunded mandate. And what we realized was that a lot of the volunteer fire departments, a lot of the smaller departments that could not afford to replace all their radios at one time, they were going to go out of business because our radios weren't going to work. So the FCC lifted the ban and they said, okay, you have until 2017. And so that is now the drop dead date, is 2017. So I can tell you that as a district, we see that coming, and we've already started purchasing radios that will make that transition in 2017. But it is something that we're not going to be able to get completely there by 2017 without some sort of funding. And so we're going to have to make that transition for the narrow band. The third interrelated element is staffing. And we all know that we can have plans, but we have to have staffing in place to carry out the plans. And so our safe and secure learning environment begins with our individuals, and that's parents, it's students, but it's also staffing. And so like I said earlier, our superintendent is very supportive when it comes to safe and secure schools. And he allowed us and helped us create an emergency management coordinator position. And we've never had one in the district. And so I'm really, really excited about having a full-time emergency management coordinator. This gentleman, Steve Dancer, works in our office at the police department. And he is responsible for all the emergency operation plans for every campus. And all the audits of those plans, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And he is focusing on training and making sure that everybody, every campus is up to date on their training, all the administrators are up to date on their training, and that emergency management is at the forefront. The other thing that Dr. Dupree helped us create was the life safety systems manager. And basically the life safety systems include all intrusion alarms, fire alarm systems, camera systems, card access systems, anything having to do with life safety that if those went down, it would be critical. So Ernie Rodriguez is now the manager over our life safety systems department. And so when we have cameras go out or camera issues with cameras or alarm systems or things like that, he's the one that's now responsible for making sure those are up and running. Now, so those are already created, but that's part of our plan. Now, the emergency management liaison is an individual that we're going to ask principals to identify at each one of their campuses. And so it will require no additional staffing, but it's just one person on the campus who will work with our emergency management coordinator and make sure that they exchange information and they communicate regularly and they train together. And that one emergency management liaison on each campus is able to carry out the mission of the emergency management coordinator. So when we need training to happen on a campus, our emergency management coordinator can contact each one of the emergency management liaisons, and now they will go and spread that information to the school. So it's a much more effective and efficient way for us to get emergency management information out to each campus. The police patrol operation. Currently, Fort Bend ISD Police Department has no patrol operation. So we have 48 officers in our department. Basically, our officers work from 8 in the morning, maybe 7:30, it just depends on high schools or what time, and then work till about 4:30 in the afternoon. So after 5 o'clock, unless we have a police officer working an athletic event or a fine arts event or something that they've been asked to work, we don't have anybody on the road. We don't have anybody working. And during the daytime, we don't have a patrol division that can go around to the elementary schools and provide them with some sort of visible presence and protection. And so what we have to do during the daytime is pull the officers from the middle schools and the high schools to go check on the elementary schools. And that leaves our middle schools and our high schools uncovered. And we really don't want to do that. So our goal is to start a full-time patrol operation in Fort Bend ISD. And I'll tell you that last year we answered about 31,000 calls for police service, 48 officers. 31,000 calls for service. And 40% of those, well, last year it was 38%, but on average it's about 40%. 38% of them last year come in after 5 o'clock and before 6 in the morning. Almost 40% of our calls for service come in at a time where I don't have anybody scheduled to work. So those are the lost kids on the bus. Those are the kids that come home and parents feel like they got assaulted at school and they want to make a report, so they call us. Or they realize they're missing their phone and now they want to make a report. I will tell you that the other agencies, bless their heart, as well as we work with them, they're not going to take those calls because it happened on a school and that's our jurisdiction and they're going to refer it to us. Well, as a parent, I would want, when I call and make a report, I want to talk to an officer right now and make a report. I don't want to hear, wait till in the morning and contact your school resource officer. So our day shift patrol that we would like to implement would focus on elementaries in their geographic area. So we would have enough day shift patrol officers that we would place them geographically where they would be responsible for going around and checking on elementary schools. That alleviates our middle schools and our high school officers from having to do that. It keeps our middle school and high school officers on the campus. Okay? So our elementary school officers or our patrol officers will go to the elementary schools. We would expect them to do some presentations, do some interaction with the kids. I firmly believe that we are educators first before we're law enforcement. We are law enforcement, but we're educators first. And we educate our kids every single day by the way we talk to them, the way we walk down the hall, the way we treat them. And so I want our officers to have a positive impact on the elementary kids because I think that's what's going to change our cycle of the school violence over the course of the next generation of kids. So that's one thing that our day shift will focus on are our elementary campuses. The evening shift would focus on elementary campuses as well because we have over 3,200 extended day kids in our program in the afternoons until 6:30 in the evening. And with no patrol to provide some presence around those elementary schools, I think that that's lacking. So we want to make sure that we provide that resource to them and also provide that resource to the parents who wish to make a phone or wish to make a report after hours, after normal school hours. Our night shift will focus on asset protection with our facilities master plan and our technology plan that's coming next. You know, we're going to invest a lot of money into our schools. And right now we rely on other agencies to respond to alarms at our schools. But frankly, they don't have keys or codes to get into our buildings. So I think we would do a much better job of protecting our assets if we had our own police force that could do that. So that's what we would want to accomplish with that. We can do all this with 12 officers and 2 sergeants. 1 sergeant for evenings and 1 sergeant for nights. The other 12 officers will be split during those 3 shifts, and that would give us coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So I think that's pretty economical there. Threat assessment teams. Threat assessment team deals with those students who display some type of behavior that might cause concern, but it's not a criminal offense. Let's say that a student turns in some disturbing artwork, or they turn in an essay, and they're talking about hurting somebody. Well, we want to make sure that we intercept that, and I say we, the threat assessment team. We want to make sure that we intercept that and that we get that student some resources now. We don't want that to turn into a situation where the student's not heard, they feel like nobody's paying attention, and then they move toward violent acts because nobody's helped them with this, whatever they talked about or drew. And so our threat assessment team could be include an officer, an administrator, a nurse, a counselor. It could include somebody from mental health services. But what we want to do is have a trained team of people and we haven't established how many teams we would need, but we would need a trained team of people so that when students do turn in some disturbing artwork or whatever, that we could get to them and ask the right questions, find out what's going on, get to the root cause of the problem, and get them the resources they need. And that's a huge goal of ours. As a starting point for that, each one of our police officers in Fort Bend ISD are already scheduled to attend the 40-hour mental health officer certification course this summer. So each one of our officers by the end of the summer will be certified as a mental health officer, and they will be trained in how to recognize mental health issues and how to ask the right questions and how to get the right resources to juveniles and adults. So that's what we're committed to do as we want to implement these threat assessment teams. Our procedures, this is our fourth interrelated element, it's our last one, but our established written procedures are the way we carry out emergency operation plans. Without a good procedure and without plans, the plan will fall apart. So, our emergency operation plan, every school, every facility has an emergency operation plan on file. We're required by law, remember we talked about earlier about the state legislation, so we're required by law to have an emergency operation plan for each campus, and each campus does. We do meet that requirement. The 4 phases of emergency management are included in that emergency operation plan, and all the roles and responsibilities for each person in that plan are defined in that plan. So we want to make sure that we bolster those plans. And our emergency management coordinator that we talked about earlier, that's already in place, conducts an audit on these. We're going to talk about the audit here in just a second. But he's already conducting the audits on those plans, and we're already in the process of that. So this is something that we're already doing. It's just important. It's a very big piece of our overall safety and security plan, and as a community, you just need to know that we're doing that. Our standard response protocol is a nationwide program that gives us very basic and standard specific actions and vocabulary to give to every student and every faculty member, every staff member. The words are lockout, lockdown, evacuate, and shelter. And so those 4 things will basically cover all the hazards that we would encounter. We're going to do one of those 4. And so what we want to do is implement these standard responses, and they're simple to train on, they're simple to drill, it's easy for students to understand, and so we want to create a consistency from our elementary kids all the way up to our high school kids so that they hear the same message year after year after year. And so they don't have to change from here's a code word in this school and that's what this code word means to now we're using real language in this school. We want to start with those 4 actions, train on that, and then every student hears the same information. Every teacher has the same information. And so no matter what school they go to, it's going to be consistent across the board. We definitely want to develop consistency. The safety and security audits that we talked about, these are required by the Texas Education Code. These audits must occur every 3 years. These are the audits of our emergency operation plan that we talked about. One of the things that we do in our audit is an intruder assessment. Our department will send our own employees in plain clothes to a school and see if we can open a back door. And we'll see if we can walk down a hallway without being challenged by staff members. And we'll see how on the ball they are, okay? Using safe people to do so. Because we would much rather find out like that, right? And so we do intruder assessments. We judge their interior security and their exterior security, as well as the leadership at that campus. What training do the principals have, the leadership team in safety, security, and emergency management, and incident command system. So we look for those. We use over 200 questions on our audit tool, and they're pretty detailed. And each campus is a little bit different, so each campus has its own unique challenges, and so that audit tool helps us make sure we tailor our emergency management operation plan for each campus. And we are back to community engagement, and I think this is Beth, where we turn this over back to Beth.
All right, thank you. Okay, I shared with you when we were starting that one of the most important things we're doing throughout this process and that we did with the facilities master plan is coming to you, the community, because you can help us to shape this plan and give us your input. And so that's the main reason for this evening, is to gather your input and for you to go out and spread information, spread the knowledge that you learned this evening, and ask your friends and neighbors and your contacts to get onto the website and watch the video and provide input to the questionnaire once that goes up after Thursday. So you play a critical role in this planning ahead and planning forward for safety and security. After we receive your input tonight and the input from Wednesday and Thursday, and then we close that window of opportunity for folks in the community who didn't join us to provide input, then we'll meet again with our steering committee on May 22nd, so that then we can move forward and share the information with the board on the 2nd of June, and then recommend the adoption of that plan that following week at the regular board meeting. So that's where we are with the community engagement, and that's where we're headed, and that's the critical role you play. And tonight, you're going to give us your feedback in two different ways. We want to first know on an individual level how you feel each one of the components that Chief Ryder spoke about this evening, how that impacts the safety and security of staff and students here in Fort Bend ISD. So you hopefully downloaded that QR code at the beginning, and you'll be able to access on your smart device the survey that will gather your individual input. We'll give you about 8 minutes to complete this survey. You'll be telling us what level of impact you feel each component has, and then there are a couple of open-ended questions we want your feedback on. If you have additional comments, you can put them in the open-ended boxes on the electronic survey, or certainly write them in. There's some folks walking around offering paper surveys. If that's better for you, please feel free to fill them in that way, or electronically. In about 8 minutes, I'll be back, and then we'll come to consensus at our tables, and I'll talk you through that process. So about 8 minutes. Please give us your individual feedback, and then we'll be right back.